State Parks and Recreation Board meeting. It's great to see all of you. I'm sitting here scratching my head wondering, where did June and July go? It seems like we just met. So it's always wonderful to see you, and thank you for being here at this board meeting. Attending today, we have from the Department of Natural Resources, Jeff Rasmussen, Director, Dave Harris, Scott Strong, Kate Croft, Chris Holler, Susan Zarakarinsky, and Darren Bird. And board members, I can see many of your faces, and you're all smiling, so it must be a good day today. We have Claudia Jarrett, we have Doug Thompson, Brent Boswell has not joined us yet. Hopefully he will join us. Leisha Colthorpe is here. Kevin Christensen and Corey Cram. So welcome, board members. We also have with us Amber Stubbings. Amber is the new administrative assistant for State Parks, and it's nice to have you, Amber, joining us this morning. So we've just called us to order. It's 9 o'clock or shortly thereafter. We appreciate you being here. We recognize that this is a volunteer opportunity, and so there's lots of blessings that you receive from this in serving the state as board members of State Parks. Thank you for your attendance today. We will, first of all, everyone had a chance to look at the agenda, and I will look for a motion to approve the agenda at this time. If you've had a chance to review it and everything looks in order.
I so move.
Okay, we've received a motion. Do we have a second?
Chair Murray, I thought you were going to ask and take a poll on the minutes because the minutes is part of the agenda. So do you want to suspend approving the minutes on this agenda to a later date?
Well, I guess I'd like to know how many of you. Okay, with that, why don't I take a motion for approving the minutes, if you're good with that.
I think you want to approve the agenda, Bob, which includes approving the minutes. So okay. That's so why I questioned the approving of the agenda, because it was approving the minutes in the agenda. So if everybody's okay and moving ahead with approving the minutes as part of the agenda.
Good point. So we'll I'll take a motion for approving the agenda, including approving of the minutes as written.
Bob, one question on the agenda. At the last meeting, we talked about getting you an assistant or a deputy vice chair. I didn't see that on the agenda. Are we going to put that off until we can meet in person, or what's the status on that?
That's a really good question. I think what we decided before was once we start meeting in person that we would identify someone,
okay,
and make that approval. Am I right with that, Jeff?
That sounds right. And I think we also wanted to make sure that we waited until Ryan Stark's replacement is online, and once that happens, then everybody's involved. So if that works for everybody, I think that makes sense.
That sounds good.
Okay, Chairman Murray, I will move approval of the agenda.
Thank you, Claudia. Do we have a second?
This is Corey. I will second that motion.
Thank you, Corey. All in favor of approving the agenda as it stands, please say aye.
I think you have to take a roll call because of being.
Maybe we have to take a roll call being virtual. Yes, thank you. Corey, what is your
aye
vote? Doug Thompson.
Virtually aye.
Okay, Kevin Christensen.
Yes, aye.
Leisha Colthorpe. Leisha Colthorpe, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, approved.
All right. Okay, we've had a motion, and all of you have approved it. So we will.
And I approve it.
Oh, Claudia, did I miss you?
Yeah, you didn't call my name. Yes, I approve.
I apologize. Claudia, thank you so much. Okay, we'll move forward with the agenda as it is then. And our next order of business then is the swearing in of Brent Boswell, but he has not joined us as of yet.
He should be on any minute now.
Okay.
Maybe we can jump to the next one.
We'll jump to the next one.
With what?
Let's go to the board member reports. And
Did you want to approve the minutes?
I'm sorry.
Bob, did you want to approve the minutes? We approved the agenda, but we have not approved
Oh, yes.
the minutes. And I do
Boy.
have two small corrections.
I'm starting out really good this morning, aren't I? Thank you for your patience with me. Yes, let's approve the minutes.
Yeah, I want to go to page 7. It's board member reports.
Okay.
And it's my name, Claudia Jarrett. It says I visited Antelope Island. I really did not. I commented that my family visited Antelope
Okay.
Island. That just needs to be clarified.
We can make that correction, right, Kate?
And then on page 9, at the fifth paragraph down, starting, Mr. Harris offered some highlights. The fourth line, it says, State Park, 2 new region crew construction leaders, Tori, Unsworth, and Russell, and then there's nothing. So there's got to be like a last name or something that has to go in there. So just that minor correction. And with
Terrific.
that, having just really read them very, very quickly, I think they're excellent. They always are. Kate does an amazing job. I'll move approval with those 2 corrections.
All right. Thank you, Claudia. We have a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I'll second.
That was Kevin Christensen that seconded that
Yes.
motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go take a roll call. Okay. Claudia,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Alicia Colthorpe,
Yes.
Corey Cram,
Yes.
Kevin Christensen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The minutes have been, there a motion to approve the minutes, and it's a unanimous approval to move forward with the minutes as written and with those corrections. Thank you, Claudia, for your diligence in reviewing those minutes and representing the State Parks Board in that action. All right, let's move on to our board member reports. And Corey, could we start with you on that?
Sure, that'd be great. I'll keep it fairly brief. I still try to get out and see some things. I went to Fremont Indian State Park recently, and I'm always impressed with the petroglyphs that are available there. And if people haven't been there, there's incredible trails and just great things to see. I think camping is being utilized to a great extent there, and good things are happening there. Here a month or so ago, I sent an email out to the board and just noted the incredible things that are happening with life-saving events across our state parks. We had a couple of incidents here locally where our rangers stepped in and saved a couple of lives, and I really appreciate the training and the good things that are happening with our rangers. And it's nice to see some positive things taking place, and that's happening across all of our state parks. But here locally, we had some just really positive things with an infant that was saved in particular, and another individual. And then up at Yuba, we had some things. But anyway, appreciate our rangers. We still have a lot of out-of-state visitors coming in, and recently we implemented some changes with our pricing with out-of-state visitors. It seems like that really hasn't slowed anything down, and I think that was a good move and makes sense. Positive to see that. Gunlock has a little tiny house, and I'm excited to see how that goes, and look forward to maybe broader implementation if that works out well. But anyway, we're proud of our parks, our park managers here in the south. We've had just brutal temperature conditions. Our monsoons in the south just didn't materialize this year, and I think our visitation revenues are really high here locally. But anyway, really proud of our people, and good things are happening.
Thank you, Corey, for that report. Claudia, can we go to you next for your report?
Well, I continue to encourage family to go to the state parks. I can't always go, but I encourage family. So my family did go to Deer Creek this summer and had a marvelous time. I guess getting in was a little, again, stressful because of the long lines and the popularity of our parks, but they had a great time. I had a meeting in Carbon, and I often go over the Fairview Mountain. I've been by Schofield State Park hundreds of times and never pulled in there. Haven't yet because I had to get to the meeting, but on the way back, I went by way of Huntington, and I have never been in that little Huntington State Park. It's just barely off the road, and it was marvelous. Cute little seasoner let me go through and go around the park, and people were enjoying themselves. It's a small little park, but obviously well used and well loved. So glad I was able to do that. The St. George Marathon has been canceled, but we're still going to go down to St. George, and I hope to enjoy Snow Canyon in a little different way this year. So
Please come on down. We're glad to have you, Claudia.
Terrific. Thank you, Claudia. Let's go to Doug Thompson. Doug.
Thank you. First of all, Corey, you said you had a tiny house there at Gunlock. What's it for?
So that's being rented out for visitation.
Great.
So come on down. I think I suspect we might hear a little bit about that as maybe from Dave or others in staff reports. But I know at Sand Hollow, we're considering that as well as park amenities that can be rented out. We got yurts, we got other things, and these little tiny houses are a new option.
Good. Thank you. We made our annual trip to Bear Lake, and holy moly, it was just jam-packed. I have never seen as many people just parking along the side of the road and then going down to the beach. It was stop and go traffic from almost, well, Pickleville to Rendezvous Beach. And when we were there, a friend of ours came and said that they had tried every single beach around the lake, and they just assumed that they couldn't get into Rendezvous, but there were a few places. And so the whole lake is just being well utilized. And according to the merchants, they're having the best year in the history. And I think that the numbers at Bear Lake Marina and at Rendezvous Beach are breaking records. It's just, it's a great place to, well, you can't really socially distance anymore because there's so many people, but it really was a beautiful place to go and get a break from the COVID. My son and his family live in Uinta, South Ogden, and they go to Antelope Island about every month, and they just really, really appreciate it. It's so well kept, and they just enjoy it. Hiram State, I understand, has been fairly busy. They've not had to turn too many people away, but they've been very busy and full, and it looks great. I've stopped by there, and they've kept it up very, very well. So the North End is doing quite well. Thanks.
Terrific.
Doug,
Thank you, Doug.
And Doug, let me make a correction. I think the house at Gunlock, the tiny house, is helping out with the staff there for their needs for housing, but it's being looked at elsewhere for options for renting those out.
Okay, thank you.
Is my understanding.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Let's go to Kevin. Kevin, your report?
Okay, yes. So I visited 3 state parks recently. One, Palisade. Now, Palisade has been crazy this summer. there's been multiple times where they've actually had to, especially on Saturdays, where they actually have to close the park because there's so much visitation. They just have to close it and say, and so they'd have a line of people, and when somebody would leave, they'd let somebody else in. So I don't know that that's ever happened before this summer, but it's happened quite a few times this summer. So things are going good out there. They had a fishing tournament that was scheduled in the springtime. They postponed it, of course, until September, but now that's been canceled as well. So they've had to make a few adjustments. Yuba State Park has done fairly, they've had pretty good water this summer. Some years they don't have good water, but they still have water. It's holding. I also visited Fremont State Park. We camped there and we rode ATVs, rode the Paiute Trail, and that was a very, very great, very good place to camp. The camp host was extremely friendly. So a thumbs up for the camp host there. But that's all I have to say as far as visitation.
Terrific. Thank you, Kevin. Leisha, let's hear from you.
Hey, it's nice to be able to see all of you virtually. I'll just give a short report too. First of all, kudos to all state park employees. I think they have worked extra hard because all of our state parks have been so busy this summer, and they have just been able to get out there and totally rock it. And it hasn't been easy because they're on restrictions of how many people they can allow in their parks, and everyone wants in. And every time I go to the state parks in my area, whether it's Red Fleet or Steinecker, they're just full, and people are, not happy about having to turn around and go somewhere else, but we're just trying to be safe and keep everyone happy. But it's been a good summer. I heard Bob say, probably some of the busiest that we've had in a long time in our area as well. Just people wanting to get out into rural Utah away from COVID and be able to recreate close to home. So that's been nice. With the closing of all events in state parks, we weren't able to have Red Fleet Paddle Fest this year, but we'll just come back bigger and stronger next year, and that's going to be okay. And things in the museum are going well. Starvation has been busy just as well all summer. Hard to get a camping spot there. They've also got some high school rodeos that they're hosting over in Duchesne this year, so that's helping fill up that campground as well through the fall. Just lots of good stuff going on. I haven't been able to get around the state much this summer. We've just been so busy with everything going on here, but look forward to being able to get out this fall a little more and visit some of the state parks that are out of my area. And that's my report.
Thank you, Leisha. I really appreciate that. You made a couple of comments. First of all, you wanted to recognize the staff at each of the state parks, which they don't get a break. And we're gonna hear from Jeff Rasmussen more about the visitation increases at all the state parks and how taxing that is on the staff. But I really appreciated that comment, and because they are working so hard to keep up with the state parks, and so we appreciate all that they do. And you talked a little bit about COVID-19, and you're absolutely right. The reason the state parks are so busy is because no one's flying anywhere, or very few people, and they're not going to movie theaters, and they're staying home. They're doing staycations, and they're going to the state parks, which gives us all kinds of visibility, probably more visibility than we've ever seen in the state parks. It's a good thing, and it's a hard thing. So thank you for your report. I think I caught everybody. Did I miss anyone? Brent, I'd like to come back to you and just first of all, welcome you. Has not been sworn in yet, but that will happen today. I want to give a little background on Brent. I've known Brent for a little while. We actually are members of the Utah Alliance for Economic Development, and he used to be a board member on that Utah Alliance for Economic Development. But Brent comes highly recommended from the tourism community and the governor's office, as well as from his local state park friends at Yuba. He currently is the Economic Development Director for Juab County, formerly served on the 6 County Association of Governments, and formerly served as the president of the Nephi Area Chamber of Commerce. So Brent comes to us with all kinds of talents and skills, and he's a smart guy, and I love to be around him because he has an incredible energy about him. So welcome, Brent. It's good to have you here. And Brent, you're muted right now. Hit your mute button.
There we go.
Brent.
There you go. Okay, Brent, what do you got to say for yourself?
Well, that's you said such nice things about me. I think I'll have you speak at my funeral one day. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to be a part of the board. It's something Kevin's talked to me about for a while, and it seems like a fun board, and I like that it's different too. It's a unique opportunity to serve and opportunity to do some good things. We do have a good relationship with Yuba, and Cheston is great. I always tell his bosses to give him a raise but never transfer him. And one of the first things I did when I found out about my appointment to the board was went and met with Cheston and talked about some ideas. And also I'm kind of big on listening for a while too, to hear everybody else's ideas before I start thinking I know that much. But it looks like it's going to be a fun opportunity to serve with y'all, and Kevin and Claudia and others I already know quite well too. And I'm excited to be a part of it.
Thank you, Brent. This is a great board. I have loved being a part of this board with these wonderful people. And
this board is going to be blessed now having an additional Nephite.
That's right. You've got 2 of the 3. That's right.
I think what we'd like to do right now, we passed over on the agenda the swearing in of Brent as our newest board member. I'd like to turn the time over to Darren Bird, who is our DNR Deputy Director, to swear you in, Brent, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, Darren?
It's great to be with all of you today. And Brent, welcome to the Board of Parks and Recreation. We'll let you sit as you do this so we don't lose you out of your camera view. So if you'll raise your right hand. I, Brent Boswell, if you repeat after me. Having been appointed by Governor Gary R. Herbert.
Having been appointed by Governor Gary R. Herbert.
And confirmed by the Utah State Senate.
And confirmed by the Utah State Senate.
As a member of the Board of Parks and Recreation.
As a member of the Board of Parks and Recreation.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support, obey, and defend.
That I will support, obey, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Utah.
The Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Utah.
And that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Say that last part again.
And that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
And I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now let me give you the instructions since it's virtually.
That's also a first, by the way.
That's true. We have 2 documents for you to sign. We're going to send those to you via mail. And when you receive those, if you'll sign both documents, keep the folder and send this back. We'll have an envelope you can send this back to the division. So we have this on record.
Perfect.
We look forward to working with you, and welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome.
Congratulations, Brent. We look forward to working with you.
Yeah, same here.
I did not give you my report. So I will give you my report quickly. I was in Bear Lake this last week, and it was crazy. I went by the Bear Lake State Park, and it was crazy. There were so many people. We were at the Ideal Beach on the south end, and as Doug, you mentioned, the beaches were slam packed with people. In fact, we went out early, like 6 o'clock in the morning, to set up our canopy, thinking that we weren't even going to get any beach front property. And before we knew it, we had all kinds of people around us. In fact, we tried to social distance in a way that there were 6 feet between the canopies, and people came in with their chairs in between the canopies and forced their way in between the canopies that we had set up. there was no social distancing going on. It was crazy, but we did our best. People are just so anxious to get out and recreate and have a good time. I have not been able to get over to the other state parks that I overlook, but I look forward to doing that. Like Leisha said, in the fall, things are a little bit cooler and a little more calmed down, hopefully. It's been a crazy last couple of months for me. We're going to go on to our division reports if we can, and we'll start off with Dave Harris with an operations report. So Dave, are you there and you ready to go?
Yes, sir. I'm ready. Unfortunately, the Hill Air Force Base is doing a lot of flying today, and so it might get loud in the background, but considers that sounds of freedom. We really appreciate our military men and women. So if it gets too noisy, let me know, and I'll call it quits. It's been mentioned, I think, by every board member how our employees at state parks are just doing an awesome job, and we're seeing that every day. They've really stepped up. Our parks are busier. We're seeing more high-level incidents. People are bringing their problems to the parks as well. We've had an uptick in domestic violence and other incidents within the park. But as somebody mentioned, we've actually been involved in some major life-saving events, which has been awesome. Our people have been there and been able to, most of the time when you hear somebody's doing CPR, the chances of somebody surviving CPR are very low. But we've had, I think, at least 2, maybe 3 incidents this year where we've performed CPR and the folks have survived. And that's an awesome statement to our folks being out there and being available, being in the right place at the right time. With all those extra visitors, and a longer season, we started at least a month early with being busy, and with schools having varying schedules, it looks like we're probably going to go into the fall, being busier as kids have 4 or 5 days a week off. They might be out in the parks more. We're really watching for signs of stress and burnout in our staff. We've asked all the region managers and park managers to be watching for that, and encourage them to hire more help, more seasonal help, and volunteers, and look for out-of-the-box ways to get people time off to recuperate from all the stuff that's going on. When a lot of agencies and businesses have been slowed down or shut down, we've been open and handling all these folks that I think Bob said that they have nothing else to do except go out and enjoy the great outdoors we have here in Utah. Every year we get a variety of complaints and compliments, and this year's been kind of interesting. We've had very few complaints, and the complaints we've had have been more about policy, like we don't like the extra vehicle fee or something like that, and no complaints on poor customer service, even though our folks are being more stressed, and no complaints on dirty facilities or anything like that. So again, another reason, hats off to all of our folks out there. And if I can find it here, I wanted to read one of the compliments that we just recently got. It says, "My family's campsite in the Uintas near Murdoch Basin Road was evacuated on July 31st due to the Upper Provo River fire while we were out hiking. This is just a short note of appreciation to the wonderful rangers for taking the time and care to pack up all of our belongings while we were gone. Everything was so well organized, and it was obvious that they treated our stuff as carefully as they would have their own family's belonging. They did this for multiple campsites with a wildfire raging close by." And just hats off to our folks for that. That was Jacob Hinton, Chase Peely, and I forget the third ranger. But anyway, those folks were out there helping evacuate right in the face of the wildfire. That's just an example of many of the things that have been going on with our staff. Myself, I've been working on a lot of HR issues. We just have a lot of vacancies right now. We've had retirements, and they've trickled down, and we still have about 12 vacancies in the parks, and that's out of 200 employees. That's quite a few folks when you're in your busy season. 5 of our LE positions are totally vacant, and we only have about 60. And then another 5 of those folks were hired recently and they haven't gone to post yet. So basically our law enforcement staff statewide is down about 20%. So that's another thing that we're dealing with as we're busier than we ever have been. I just wanted to hit a couple of the recent promotions and hires. Bevan Monroe, who was the assistant manager at Palisade, congratulations to him. He's the new park manager at Escalante State Park. And Chad Wade, who was a ranger at Palisade, has been promoted to the assistant manager at Palisade. So congratulations to Chad. TJ Hughes was a journey maintenance on our Southeast region crew in Moab, and he's been promoted to a lead maintenance on the same crew. Rachel Toker in our Salt Lake office was one of the accountants, and she's been promoted to the OHV program grants manager. Jacob Hinton was a ranger at Jordanelle, and he's been promoted to sergeant with the LE program. And Aaron Bynun is a brand new employee from out of our agency, and he's a heavy equipment operator to Jordan River OHV Park. So we've had a lot of other transfers and stuff, but most of those took place maybe prior to the other board meetings, so I won't cover those. Also, we've had some difficulty in recruiting some of our folks, the maintenance and the shop mechanics. We've announced some of those positions multiple times, and just with the pay rate, and they're kind of misclassified. So I'm working with human resources, try to get those reclassified into a more appropriate position title, and hopefully a higher pay range, so we can attract some quality people. For example, right now our boat not off-highway vehicle mechanics, which work on highly technical equipment, marine and hydraulics and snowcats and all these other things, they're classified as auto workers. So when you're recruiting, you don't get the folks that you're looking for those jobs. So anyway, working with human resources on that. Also working on rule and guideline updates. You'll see in this board meeting, we're going to talk about camping rules, and hopefully next board meeting, we'll be talking about special use permits and updating those rules. I'm also working on a lot of our guidelines haven't been updated in a good number of years, probably at least a dozen years. They're supposed to be updated every time we have a new director, and I think we're on the third director since they've been updated. So working on that, and also a system where our employees would have digital access to all the guidelines rather than paper copies. And then just around the state with the programs, Kate and all the program managers and the region managers did a great job. If you get a chance to look through the board packet, there's a lot of awesome pictures in there, a lot of descriptions of what's going on. And a lot of the board members have mentioned some of the things I was going to talk about, so I'll just go through this real quick. Our LE program, they have that new sergeant position to focus on enforcement and education and areas where our parks haven't been able to get because they're so busy. We have 5 new rangers going to the police academy starting August 31st, and they should be completing that just before Christmas. Our OHV program has hired a new position for grant funding, that's where the funding for the position comes from, and that position will manage the grant programs. And they're also working to acknowledge and celebrate their 50th anniversary of the OHV program, which will be next year. The boating program, there's been a lot of boating fatalities so far this year, 10 of those. And unfortunately, 90% of those could have survived the accident if they would have been wearing a life jacket. So they're doing some new PSAs, and I don't know if you've seen any of those. They're kind of mind-catching and comical with Big Roy to push life jacket wear. Our ROV team, which is the underwater recovery vehicle, is assisted with 5 body recoveries from boat accidents and drowning victims, giving families closure. In our North region, there's so much going on. I do hope you get a chance to read through all the details in the region reports. But in our North region, most parks have been hitting capacity every weekend, and some are even hitting capacity during the week. All of our large events have been canceled, and some of the small events that fit the current guidelines by the CDC and the state of Utah have been held. Just in the North region, they've had 51 critical incidents. They've written 4,500 reports, written 1,800 citations, and have arrested 214 individuals so far this year. So they're extremely busy with stuff going on in the parks. At the Southeast region, they're continuing to work with, and I won't say BLM anymore, I'll say the Bureau of Land Management, on co-management issues at Goblin Valley, Goosenecks, and Mill Site. All those places we're looking at working with the BLM, whether it's acquiring their property through a conveyance or working on a joint plan to manage an area. So we're working with them on those. Escalante State Park has been moved from the Southwest region to the Southeast region. And at the Southwest region, the parks that are typically slow this time of year when the temperatures hit the 90s and 100s have continued to be busy well through the into this summer. I heard one report, and somebody said that they had taken the temperature of the sand at Sand Hollow, and it was 160 degrees. So I don't know how people are handling it on the beach, but you could definitely burn your feet on that. Washington County Parks saw huge impacts from Nevada visitors, and they've increased their day use fees for out-of-state visitors down there to help with that impact that they're having. And in southern Utah, we've had several fires that burned very close to and within Quail Creek and Snow Canyon State Parks. However, everybody was safe, and no buildings were damaged or anything. So, and Mr. Chair, that's my report. Unless anybody has any questions, appreciate the time.
Any questions from the board for Dave Harris?
I do. You know, there's been so much about defunding the police and this whole thing of new protocols for law enforcement because of what happened with George Floyd. Has that impacted state parks law enforcement at all? Are you under the state guidelines for any of that, or do you have your own guidelines for law enforcement on those kind of issues?
Well, we follow the police officer standards and training. So if anything changes in protocols on arrests or arrest control techniques or anything like that, our employees would comply with whatever the new training protocol is for the state. So we're trained the same as highway patrolmen, sheriff's departments. There's a state standard that everybody has to apply to. And I personally haven't heard of any changes coming through yet on that. With a lot of folks being down on law enforcement, we were actually hoping, we've been announcing a lot of our positions as public recruitments, and hoping maybe some folks that have law enforcement experience already and an outdoor recreation background might be looking for a different type of law enforcement job like we can provide, but we haven't seen any of those trying to come to our agency yet.
Claudia, this is Jeff. Just an additional comment to that. Todd Royce, our department director, has been working with Christopher Quick, who's our law enforcement chief for state parks, and just making sure to keep our policies in line with the Utah Department of Public Safety. To my knowledge, we haven't had to change anything, but they are certainly keeping on top of that. One other thing that Darren just reminded me of was that our folks from state parks, as well as Division of Wildlife Resources, helped assist with protection of the Capitol and other state facilities during the protests in Salt Lake City. So we've definitely been involved on top of what we're doing with state parks.
Okay, any other questions for Dave Harris? Okay. If not, let's go to Scott Strong, Deputy Director over Business and Finance. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got three things that I'd like to cover today, just to give you a summary. One will be visitation and kind of what has happened or what we've seen with the impacts of COVID. And then I'll talk about our profit and loss summary. And then I'll finish with just a brief discussion on our building blocks that we're requesting this year. With that, though, I'd like to skip back to some of the comments that Corey.
Scott, you're muted.
Are you not hearing Scott at all?
I think you're back online, Scott.
Okay, start over again, Scott. Sorry.
Okay.
It was really good though so far.
Just perfect. Okay. Well, I'll try to be as good the first time or the second time as I was the first. There are three things I want to cover today. And first off, can you all hear me now? I don't want to have to do it a third time.
Great.
Okay, thanks. So there are three things that I'll cover today. The first will be a summary of what we've experienced and seen with COVID and the impacts that has had on our parks on the financial side and visitation side. Then I'll go over the profit and loss for last year. We just completed our fiscal year for 2020. So I'll give a review of that very quickly. And then I'll summarize some of the building blocks or just give you an idea of what we're asking for the upcoming year. And those building blocks, again, are for projects that we'll want to complete next fiscal year. So before I begin with that, I just want to thank each of you for the time that you've spent out in the parks and talking to our staff. I think that's amazing to hear those stories and that you take the time to go out and have those experiences, both you and your families. I think it's always great when you bring your families. I do want to go back to something that Corey said about the park model RVs. Those are exciting for us for a few different reasons. First off, like Corey mentioned, we're using them for staff housing. We've identified parks that are not easy to get to. And we've placed park model RVs there for staff. The first one was at Gunlock State Park, as has been mentioned. We also placed one at Goblin Valley State Park. We find it very hard to recruit seasonal staff out there, and the park model RV is great for that. The park models are really neat if you haven't seen them. They have a master bedroom and bathroom. They sometimes will have a secondary bedroom and then a loft. And in the loft, we can put 3 or 4 bunk beds up there. So they house quite a few people, or they can. So anyway, that was great to hear, Corey, from you to give that example at Gunlock. And I know our manager at the park is super excited about that too. So from there, let me give you a little more information on the park models again, because I'm so excited about it. But statewide, we'll have 53 of those. 8 will be for park housing, and then the remaining 45 will be available to the public. And we've identified parks throughout the entire park system, from all the way from Sand Hollow to Bear Lake, where we'll place those and have them available for the public. And for me, it's an exciting project to see, because I think we're going to bring a new niche of visitors to the park that haven't had that experience before. So we'll keep you updated on those. Now to jump into the body of what I wanted to talk about today. The first is this handout, and hopefully you can see it on the screen in front of you. But on Monday, Jeff had a meeting with the legislature and shared this information. And then on Tuesday, the Salt Lake Tribune actually wrote an article and quoted almost everything that Jeff said in the meeting. So if you have a chance, we'll try to get that link out there, and so that you can read that too. It was a great meeting, and Jeff did an awesome job explaining what has happened and what we've seen with COVID and the impacts at our parks. But I want to start off with this first segment that talks about visitation, the comparison. And these are parks, these first 5 parks are all in the Southeast region. And you'll notice the devastating impact that we saw in April because of that. And April is one of the busiest months for these parks. People just love to come in the springtime to visit these parks. And we had to overnight cancel reservations at completely booked campgrounds at each of these parks, which was, again, devastating, both for our visitors. And I'll tell you, my heart broke for a lot of those people. There were quite a few actually, that I talked to personally, and they were devastated, both because they had to make other arrangements, but as well as they had, family members that were impacted by COVID too. But you can see that visitation in April was down almost 100% in those 5 parks. And then we see some rebounding in May, June, and July. We're seeing some improvement, but still the impacts of COVID are definitely noticeable on the Southeast parks specifically, statewide as well. And that's when you jump down to that next column, the middle column, it's the statewide visitation. And you can see the comparisons by month. And really, you want to pay more attention to the April, May, and June numbers. But what we saw in April statewide is a 39% decrease in visitation, which is incredible, especially when you look at the trend. We were trending upwards, and we're going to blow last year's numbers out of the water. And then again, April happened, and then May, June, and even July into this year, we're seeing quite a bit of recovery, which is amazing. And I think it's been said about people wanting to get out and recreate. It's also interesting that our staff has made a lot of strides and put a lot of their heart and soul and tears into keeping our parks open. The easy thing would have been to close museums, which we saw statewide, or even the national parks, which closed. And instead of doing that, we kept our parks open. And that, again, I can't say enough about both of our full-time staff as well as our seasonal staff, and the way that they kept coming to work no matter what, knowing that they were going to have all those contacts. They still kept coming to work so we can keep the parks open, which is really amazing. The May and June numbers are quite telling, but Dave mentioned these numbers, the 54% increase in May compared to last year is telling too, because at many of our parks, I think Jeff and Dave have both mentioned it, but Sand Hollow was closing their gate at 8 o'clock every day because of capacity issues. And we were managing the parks at about 75% of capacity. That's something we would never do outside of COVID. But anyway, it's just interesting to note that we saw those increases even with the capacity issues. And then the last piece of that chart talks about the revenue and gives you a revenue comparison by both year. And then I like the July comparison too, but we're up 17% in July compared to last year. We're up almost 8.5% statewide this year compared to last fiscal year. And again, these numbers are really impressive because of the efforts we've made to keep the parks open. And you can see some of the negative numbers, especially with the retail sales. Part of that is because of COVID. People aren't coming indoors. They want to stay outdoors, which is a good thing, but it's having a devastating impact on those sales. I can move on from here and hit my next section, or if you have questions about these numbers, I'd be happy to answer them now too.
Do we have any questions from the board?
No, I'm just encouraged by the annual park pass that shows an increase, because that was the one we had so much debate online to the board members, concerned about how that was going to increase, especially for seniors. So it looks like it is positive. So turned out okay.
Well, with that, because of COVID, instead of increasing the pass price, we had talked about doing a price increase for the annual pass. We delayed that. And we're talking about doing that probably in the next month or so. So all those folks were buying the pass at the lower or the current, $75 and $35, which is a great deal. And it'll still be a good deal when we increase it to $100. So $100 and $50 for the seniors. But honestly, I don't see that those numbers, Claudia, are going to decline with the annual pass sales, because it's such a good deal.
Well, and I thought we'd already implemented it. We just reduced the increase to be a little more reasonable. So thanks for that explanation.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. Go ahead and move forward, Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. The next one is just a quick summary on the profit and loss statements. We're up 23% from last year. Last year, we were up 15% from the year before. So again, we're knocking it out of the park, and that's hats off to our staff who are working at the parks every day. But 23% is amazing, and that equates to about $1.6 million over what we had last year. And again, you know what, I know I've said it, but we're managing at capacities. So it could have been a lot greater than that 23%. And as a side note, of our 32 recreation parks that we have, all but 5 increased their profit and loss from last year, or had a positive profit and loss. And the other 5 were within $50,000 or less of having a positive profit and loss result, which again is spectacular. With the building blocks, I can't really go into a lot of detail, but I did want to let you know that we met with the governor's office the other day, and we're requesting between 10 and $15 million out of our restricted funds to fund some really neat projects that will impact our visitors and our park staff, that will improve their job and the parks themselves. But as we get more information from the governor's office and approval from them, we'll pass that information on to you. With that, that's my report, Chairman.
Terrific, Scott. Thank you so much for your report. You know, I just had a thought. I wonder if there's something that we can do for the different state parks staff members. You know, I found that it's the little things that matter the most. And maybe just something that we can do to show our appreciation to them. I don't know. I'm sure we have a budget that we could maybe fill up a cooler full of cold drinks and drop it off at each of the state parks and with a note of thank you. I don't know if we could do something like that, but I just had a thought. It's so hot out there and these people are working so hard. It just seems like it would be kind of fun to do something like that. Maybe we can think about something like that for our staff members. And maybe you've already got something in the works.
Mr. Chairman, this is Corey. I can tell you the cooler works. I pack one in the back of my pickup with drinks, and here, I guess it's been a few months ago, I stopped at Gunlock and caught John there and a seasonal, and boy, that just gave him a drink and then a second and a third, and drinks go a long way this time of year, and they really do appreciate just little things like that. How
difficult would it be to do that at all of our state parks for our staff members? That would be a real shot in the arm for them, I think. I don't know. Well, let's turn the time over to our director and his report, Jeff Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I agree. A little recognition every once in a while goes a long way with employee morale. Always makes a huge difference to really anyone, for a supervisor or a peer or a board member, or whoever, a legislator, stakeholder, whoever it might be, just to say thank you. So if you're out and about and you see one of our employees, just encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity. And I love the drink idea. It's simple, but it means a lot, and everybody likes a cold drink on a hot summer day. So thank you for your comments. I just had a few notes, a few things that I'd like to share with you today, and appreciate the opportunity. I guess I'll start with Kate's responsibilities, and just want to say thank you to Kate for making sure that what needs to happen for this board meeting happens, and continuing to fill in on her previous assignment as the administrative assistant for the division while we've been in the hiring freeze that we've been in, and working towards recruiting. And looks like Amber stepped away from her desk, but I'm so excited to have Amber filling that position. She'll be starting on Monday the 31st and serving in a part-time role initially as she transitions away from Governor's Office of Economic Development. But I think we've really found a good fit for the position. Just so happens that she was serving with the Governor's Office under Ryan Starks, our former board member. And when I found out that she worked in Ryan's office, I couldn't resist calling him to get a reference, and he had nothing but great things to say about Amber, but was feeling a little bad about giving her any kind of a positive comment because he knew that could be leaving the office. But I appreciate him being honest, and look forward to you all getting a chance to get to know Amber. She brings a lot of great skills to our agency, as well as just tremendous enthusiasm and excitement for working for DNR. I think she's going to be a great fit. So welcome, Amber. I thought I'd mention a change that we're making in our management of construction projects for state parks. Dan Clark, our former construction manager for state parks over statewide projects, recently resigned. And whenever we have a position vacancy with our agency, we always go through a careful analysis of, what's the best way to move forward with the responsibilities that they had. Kind of a result of the audit that we had 10 years ago, just to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to be as efficient as we possibly can with the resources that we use to manage our agency. And in doing that analysis, we feel pretty confident that we can probably redistribute some responsibilities that he had within our existing staff and still get the job done, and maybe in some ways do a better job at it. We recently, the reason we're able to do that was a couple of years ago, we made a decision to add an additional journey maintenance crew member on each one of our construction crews. So all 4 regions, an additional position to help with those construction projects, thinking that our existing region crew chiefs could do more project management. So instead of doing all the projects in-house with our existing staff, spend more time contracting those projects out. And we feel that with those additional 4 staff members and kind of changing up the statewide responsibilities that are now going to fall under Chase Prince, who was Stan's assistant, that we can probably get the job done and likely do it more efficiently than we've done in the past. So we're going to give it a try. Anyway, just a heads up that there's been a change there. Something else that we're working on that I wanted to give you a heads up on was kind of came from a comment that I got from Brian, the department director, in doing a better job highlighting the good things that we're doing in our state parks, the good things that are happening with the grant programs that we administer with the state. And I have to admit, I'm kind of stealing some of these ideas from the Office of Outdoor Recreation. They do a great job administering grant programs for the state of Utah, and they've made some videos that do a great job at just showcasing the positive benefits that have happened from those grant programs that have improved tourism, that have improved visitor recreation opportunities. And I want to do the same thing with our state park system. So even with the things that we're doing within our state parks with development and improvement projects at our state parks, Scott was adding up the numbers the other day, and I believe over the last 3 to 4 years, we've invested somewhere in the neighborhood of $35 to $40 million, or in the process of investing that big of a chunk of money into state park improvements. And our visitors certainly see those when they visit our parks, but I think we need to do a better job showcasing that work. And the beauty of those construction projects is they're being paid for from the revenue that we generate at our state parks. So this isn't taxpayer money. This is revenue money that we're putting to use to improve our parks, to improve our park recreational opportunities for visitors, and also improve our business. They're good investments. They're new campgrounds, they're new day use areas, and they in turn are going to bring in more money that we can reinvest. So we've asked Eugene and Devin from our public affairs program to start working on some videos, not only showcasing these great developments, but also interviewing visitors, county commissioners, tourism directors, just so we can get a better feel and tell a better story about how these projects benefit Utah, benefit our visitors, benefit our state park system. Our recreational trails program, administered by Chris Haller, our off-highway vehicle program coordinator, brings in just about $1.5 million a year that is put back onto trails throughout Utah, not just in our state parks, but all across the state of Utah for motorized and non-motorized trails, things like trailheads, restrooms, trail maintenance, emergency response equipment. There's not very many people that know about these investments that we're making, and they make a big difference in the offerings throughout Utah for motorized and non-motorized trail systems. The off-highway vehicle fiscal incentive grant, Chris Haller's got at least one proposal on this board meeting. This was a grant program that we expect to bring in over $3 million a year from off-highway vehicle registrations to be reinvested back into off-highway vehicle opportunities throughout the state. This was a major score for the off-highway vehicle community in that formerly these monies went to pay for just general tax dollar responsibilities for schools, for roads, for things that are certainly important, but not directly related to that activity. And we can now take that funding and spend it on some of the same things that I mentioned with the other grant, trail construction, trail maintenance, trailheads, restrooms, emergency response equipment. The idea is to reinvest that money back into that recreational activity to better improve it. We've been doing, you've already, as a board, have already approved several of these grants, and there's a lot more coming and a lot of good that can happen from these investments, and we need to do a good job showcasing them. We have boater access grants through the boating program that we administer grants for just over $1 million a year that go into boat ramps, restrooms, parking lots, sewer pump outs, docks, things that improve boater access. Doing the same thing there. And lastly, as a division, we administer the Land and Water Conservation Fund program and award grants in the amount of $1 to $2 million a year. This money comes in from offshore oil and gas leasing and can be used for expanding the outdoor recreation opportunities throughout Utah. We've got a grant today that Susan will be presenting for your approval. All these grants do more to improve outdoor recreation in Utah and are directly related to the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan that you approved, I believe, last year. That just talks about where money should be invested for outdoor recreation in Utah. Okay, so some thoughts about what's coming up.
Hey, Jeff, can I make a comment?
Yep.
I really appreciate what you're saying. I think and I see in our agencies that oftentimes we do an incredible job about quietly going about our business, and people don't realize what we're doing, and I really see the need for what you're saying. And if we don't help people understand the benefits of our activities and in our investments, and doing that on a regular and ongoing basis, then it kind of catches up with us, and then we can have problems. And I think our users, our elected officials, everybody needs to see what's going on and appreciate our activities and our efforts. So I really support and appreciate what you're saying.
I completely agree with you, Corey, on that. And I was going to make a comment on that as well. There is absolutely no reason to be secret about all the great improvements that are happening at the state parks, what's happening at Echo Reservoir and what's happening at Antelope Island with the campgrounds. These are improvements that are allowing people to have more fun in more parks more often. That's the whole vision of all of this, right? And why would we be quiet about that? So that when we have to do a gate increase, an annual pass increase or something like that, people can see what's happening. It's very visible what's happening to increase those opportunities and have people have better experiences, richer experiences at our state parks. Gosh, it just makes sense that we promote that as much as we can. I love the idea.
Thank you for the comment. And I think with Utah State Parks, people know us for our state parks. That's what we're best known for. And we've been doing a lot of things in our state parks. And even though they know state parks, I don't think they realize the amount of investment that we're making from the revenue that we collect in our parks. And then you're right, when it comes time to increase that annual pass fee, I know that as a user, I feel better that, well, as an off-highway vehicle user, with the change, with that registration funding being reinvested back into the activity that I'm paying for, makes me feel a lot better about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've been doing so many things for so long that we take it for granted, but the public doesn't know about these other grant programs that we've been administering, and certainly the beneficiaries of those grants are aware of it, but the general public has no idea that we're doing that, and we need to do a better job telling that story. And Eugene and Devin do a great job with videos. We showed you the work that they did with our recruitment video the last board meeting, and they'll put together something really good. And this isn't just something that we'll show to the legislature. I want to put it on our website. I want to put it on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that we can do to get the word out about these this work that we're doing that benefits Utah, that benefits the economy, that benefits our visitors. Okay, just a couple more things, and then I'll finish up. You can always tell when the session is approaching. You'll see me wearing a tie a lot more often. I was volunteered to give a presentation to the interim committee on Monday, just to talk about a lot of the same things that Scott shared with you today. And I just want to say that I feel great support from the legislature for state parks. They love what we're doing, not just our committee, our 19-member appropriations committee for the legislature, but the legislators in general. Just I hear so many positive comments about good experiences that they have at our state parks with our employees, but it's great to have that support. Coming up for the session, I'm already hearing of some new state monument proposals, and I expect that to happen this session. What I'm hoping that we can keep on the straight and narrow is to make sure that we follow the statute that was created for creating state monuments, making sure that they truly are significant and appropriate for designation, and making sure that they're either self-sustaining on their own or that they come with a partner that can cover ongoing costs. So you can expect to hear about some of those. I think we're likely to hear about more state park proposals. Some of which may or may not be good additions to our state park systems, but our concern is the same with new state park proposals. We want to make sure that they're really appropriate, that they meet the level of state park designation, that we can be proud to hang our state park's name on those new sites. And we need to make sure that they're financially self-sustaining so that we can continue to do what we're doing with paying our own way. So we'll make sure to do everything that we can to route those that way as they come up. There seems to be a lot of interest in expanding outdoor recreation, and I've had conversations, one-on-one conversations with Speaker Wilson about potential future expansion opportunities in our state park system. You may have seen there was an article on KSL this morning about the special session this week, and about some discussions with executive appropriations and throughout the legislature about COVID care money and reinvesting that money back into the Utah economy to stimulate the economy. But the exciting part about it is they've got our state park system in mind as a potential recipient of that funding to the amount of $25 million. Who knows if it's going to happen, but Scott and I were working with the Speaker's office last week and gave them a big list of potential investments that we can make into state parks that will upgrade some facilities, that will make some improvements and potential expansions. The catch with this money is it has to be spent before the end of the calendar year. And for any of you that have been involved in spending a lot of money within state government or federal government, that's a really tall order. But we've come up with a really good list that we can put that money to use if it does come our way, and we'll be working on that. Additionally, on top of CARES money, I've just been hearing from a lot of legislators who I have contact with when they're thinking about making investments into the Utah economy. They're thinking about state parks, and they're thinking about new state parks. They're thinking about expanding existing state parks. And I think that's really cool. And it would be great to receive anything on top of what we're already doing to reinvest back into our system. As many of you have mentioned, there's so much demand on outdoor recreation throughout Utah, not just in our state parks, but in city, county, federal facilities. People are wanting to get out and recreate, and the investments that we're making with our money are going a long way to address that. But I think it's been mentioned many times before, you build it and they'll come, and I believe that's true with any investments that we make. We just want to make sure that they're good investments that will pay for themselves long term as we move forward, so we can continue this self-sustaining model. That's all I had, other than just want to give a thank you to our staff, our full-time, our seasonal, our volunteer staff that work so hard to keep our parks open. It's been crazy busy, and the crazy busyness isn't just on the weekends, it's 7 days a week. And I was talking to our chairman earlier about the challenge that creates with never really having time to get caught up, not having the time to take off, to water the lawns, to do deep cleanings of our facilities. And that's definitely been taxing on our staff. And so I think if you have an opportunity to hand one of our staff members a ice cold bottle of water and say thank you, they would certainly appreciate it. But just hats off to our staff. They love what they do. They're dedicated, and they put their heart and soul into it. And obviously we couldn't do it without their dedication. And lastly, hats off to you all on this board for your dedication and support for our state parks. We appreciate what you do and the direction that you give for our agency. That's all I had, and unless you've got any other questions.
Any questions from the board members for Jeff? Okay, seeing no questions. Jeff, thank you for your leadership and your courage and your confidence and leading the state parks and through a very challenging time. And for you, Dave, and for you, Scott, working together as a team, the trust bond that you have together and the way that you work together and lead the organization is really commendable. I feel really grateful to be able to chair this board and to work with such great people. You know, we're right on time, which is really cool. You never know when you start, a process like this, whether or not you're going to stay on schedule, but we are right on schedule. So kudos to everyone. Dave, can we turn some time over to you to discuss the camping rules amendments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you like me to go over all three since they're kind of related before you make any motions or actions, or do you want me to do them one at a time?
Let's do them one at a time. And do we need to take a motion one at a time, or is there one motion for all?
There's probably three. I didn't look at that part, but there's probably three separate motions.
Okay, three separate ones. So let's take them one at a time, and then we'll take a motion on each one individually. Okay. These are all related to camping and our camping rules. The first one here, the R651 609-21 posted. The background for that is this division rule would clarify the term posted as it refers to our rules. With a new rule on camping check-in and check-out times, we use the term posted in those rules to indicate locations where check-in and check-out times will be given as notices. These locations will be physically at parks or on printed and web-based documents. There will be a variety of check-in and check-out times throughout the park system. So a recommended action is, we recommend that the board add rule R651 609-21 to read as follows. Posted means law and rule notices that are placed physically in prominent locations or are listed on official state park documents, receipts, permits, or websites. Board members, do you have any questions about this rule before we take a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we add Rule R651-60921, posted to read as follows. Posted means law and rule notices that are placed physically in prominent locations or are listed on official state park documents, receipts, permits, or websites.
Okay, thank you, Claudia, for the motion. Do we have a second from a board member?
Mr. Chairman, this is Corey. I would second that motion.
All right, thank you, Corey. Let's go down the line and hear from each of you board members on approval of this rule or non-approval as how you feel. Let's go to you, Brent, first. You're on mute, Brent. We need to hear from you. Awesome, Brent. Thank you. And Claudia?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
And Doug?
Yes, thank you.
Terrific. Kevin?
Yes.
And Leisha? Are you there, Leisha?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The voting has been unanimous to approve this recommended rule number. Thanks, Dave. Next one.
Okay. Rule R651-606-2, campsite, overnight facility, and park lodging occupancy. The background is, as our parks have become increasingly busier, there has been some concern. We are turning away overnight stays when there may be space available due to no-show reservations. The current status is, the way our current rule is written, we don't have authority to reassign vacancies, even when we know the site or lodging will go unused. A few parks have been reassigning no-shows. Not all parks want to do this, but we should have the ability to do so when we are confident that the reservations are not going to be used. And the recommended action is to change that rule, which used to say reserved campsites may not be taken, to read as follows. Campsites, overnight facilities, and park lodging units occupancy. No person shall occupy or otherwise use a campsite, overnight facility, or park lodging unit when it is occupied or reserved for another person. And B, if a reserved campsite, overnight facility, or park lodging unit is not occupied within 24 hours of the reservation date check-in time, the park management may reassign the campsite, overnight facility, or park lodging unit to another individual.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dave. Any comments or questions from the board members on this rule?
I have a question. So I just want to make sure I understand that you will honor the reservation until they've not shown up for 24 hours. Is that correct?
Correct. And up to the discretion of the park management, they make attempts to contact the folks, and sometimes they find out that no, I'm not coming, so they can reassign that campsite. A lot of parks don't want to do this, but we have some that have been doing it, and we haven't had any problems with those that have been doing it.
Well, I think
so we make attempts to make sure that they're not coming.
That's good. And one thing that I didn't realize is that the state parks, they lose nothing on this because they are all prepaid reservations. So after 24 hours, they can fill that occupancy. They can fill that space.
Will this rule be made known to anyone who makes a reservation so that they will know that if they don't take advantage of it within 24 hours, they may lose it?
Correct. Yeah, we will update our Reserve America, and it'll be on. That was kind of the for putting the term posted in there as well, is that there will be places where this information will be posted.
Okay, does everybody understand the purpose of this rule change? And do you have any other comments or questions?
Just for clarification for me, so if somebody isn't there at check-in time, 1 minute after, then it can be given up because you weren't there 24 hours before your check-in time. So in essence, if you're not there at check-in time, your reservation's gone. Is that the gist of it.
No, it would be 24 hours after check-in time. Say you were going to check in at 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and it's 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and you haven't checked in, you haven't contacted the park. They've contacted you, and you say you're not coming, or whatever they decide to do. Then that site may be given up. It's not a given that it's going to happen every time. Some parks don't even want to do this, but there's some parks that have already been dabbling in it, and it's worked successfully for them.
It's 24 hours.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Just seems like 24 hours is a long time to give people opportunity to say whether they're coming or not. So.
Right. We want to give people all the opportunity that we can. I think that's standard. I knew somebody worked in the National Park Service. They did the exact same thing, 24 hours, and then they were trying to contact them to see if they were coming.
It makes sense to me. It seems reasonable to me. Any other comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on this rule.
I so move.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Do we have a second?
This is Corey. I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Corey, for the second. And Brent, let's go with you for your vote.
I vote yes. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, Claudia?
Yes.
Thank you, Corey.
I vote yes as well.
Awesome. Kevin?
Yes.
Doug, did I get your vote?
No, and I feel really bad you skipped me. But yes, I vote for it.
Okay, awesome. And Leisha, are you still there? Leisha Colthorpe?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think I got everybody on that. And so the voting has been unanimous in approval of that rule change. Thanks, Dave. On to the next one.
Okay. And rule R651-6068, time by which campsites shall be vacated. This is the rule that started all the other changes. We noticed that our existing rule said that the check out time was 2 p.m. and we had a lot of parks that had strayed away from that. So got with all the region managers, and they got with their parks and identified all the different check-in, check-out times that were around the state, and went back and forth if we should have one specific time or be more variable to allow for different situations, like visitors at Jordanelle or different visitors that typically go to Escalante. So we wanted to be inclusive for everybody and try to give everybody what worked best for their parks. But anyway, the background is we have a rule identifying checkout time for campsites for a number of years. The rule is important for setting a time when campers need to vacate a site so that the next incoming site users have a set time they know they can occupy the site. Our current status is that over time, the parks have become busier, and with the introduction of lodging within the parks, many have had to adjust their checkout times and establish check-in times to allow for cleaning and lawn watering between customers. Even though our rule states that the checkout is 2 p.m., parks have adjusted those times anywhere from noon to 2 p.m. And many parks had also established a check-in time to allow the site to be vacant for several hours between customers for necessary maintenance. This rule will allow parks to have checkout and check-in times that work for both camping and lodging, and can be flexible to allow for each park's unique conditions. Typically, lodging takes more time to clean between customers and may require a longer vacant period. Regional managers will approve the park's checkout and check-in times, and they will not allow more than 3 hours of vacancy between customers. The recommended action is that we change rule R651-6068 to campsite, overnight facility, and park lodging unit check-in or check-out, check-in times. Unless approved by park management, no person may occupy a campsite, overnight facility, or park lodging unit after the posted checkout time or prior to the posted check-in time.
Okay, board members, any comments or questions about this? To me, this says it's up to the park manager, gives the park manager more flexibility. It's not a hard and fast, you're out by 2:00. Is that right, Dave?
Correct. It says unless approved by park management. So if there's not another camper coming in, it's Sunday night, maybe they let somebody stay till 3:00. Or if somebody's arriving at the park and they get there at 1:00 and check-in isn't until 3, but they've had time to clean. The people left at 9 in the morning, they've already cleaned the campsite. It's all ready to go. The park management can allow those people to occupy that site prior to the check-in time.
Dave, I think
Any
it was a
comments?
great idea,
Yeah.
makes sense. But I'm just wondering, do we have much of a problem in getting people to leave at the checkout time?
We have. It hasn't been a huge problem, but we've always had the checkout time. They've issued citations, given a number of warnings for it over the years. People will be out boating on the lake and forget, oh, I better get back and get out of my campsite for the next folks. So it's been an issue, but not a huge issue.
I think as long as the park manager makes it very clear with those folks, hopefully it's not going to be a problem going forward. Any comments?
That was just one of the reasons for the term posted as well in the definitions. It'll be posted at the camp office. It'll be on their receipts. It'll be on Reserve America. It's on our website already, what the check-in, check-out times are. So folks know what they are when they make their reservation or when they get to the campsite.
Awesome. Any other comments or questions from the board? If not, I'll take a motion on Rule R651-606-8.
Mr. Chairman, this is Corey. I'd make the motion that R651-606-8 be changed to, which is campsite, overnight facility, and park lodging unit. Checkout and check-in times be changed to read, unless approved by park management, no person shall occupy a campsite, overnight facility, or park lodging unit, A, after the posted checkout time, or B, prior to the posted check-in time, as has been presented by Deputy Director Dave Harris.
Terrific. Thank you, Corey. Do we have a second on this motion?
Yes, this is Kevin. I'll second that.
Thank you, Kevin. And let's take person by person and take a vote on that. Brent, can you lead us off on that?
Yes, I vote yes on that one. I think it makes us act more like the private sector than government. I think that's a good idea.
Terrific. Thank you, Brent. Claudia?
Yes.
And Corey?
I vote yes.
Okay. Doug?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
And Leisha?
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you, everyone. The motion's unanimous. Dave, thank you for explaining these rules for us.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chair and the board, for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda, we'll turn some time over to Chris Holler for the OHV Fiscal Incentive Grant action. Chris?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome each member of the Utah State Parks Board. And also want to acknowledge our newest family member, Brent. It's great to have you aboard. Long time no see, my friend, and super excited that you will be on our board and part of our division family. So thank you. So along those lines, what I'm going to go ahead, Brent. Sorry.
The unmute wouldn't come up. Good to see you again. Glad to be here.
Yeah, now I just got to figure if I'm checking in or checking out. I'm somewhat confused after that little 20-minute action item that we had. So along those lines, Chris Haller, Utah Division of Parks and Recreation Off-Highway Vehicle Program Coordinator. We recently, through an approval process and hiring process, we had 110 applications that we received in regards to our state off-highway vehicle program grant administrator. And what I'd like to do is if it's okay with the chair and the rest of the board, is turn a few minutes over to Rachel Toker, let her introduce herself and who she is, if that's appropriate, along those lines.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Rachel. Thank you. Good to have you with us.
It's nice to meet everyone. My name is Rachel Toker. I'm just gonna kind of tell you a little bit about myself. I'm originally from New Hampshire. I moved out here 3 years ago, and how I got started with state parks was actually as a volunteer. I was working with Mike Thomas, who is under Chris Haller, as a volunteer for him during the summer. During that time, I completed about 260 hours of volunteer work for them. At that time, I was also working for Wildlife Resources as a temporary position for quagga invasive species. And then when that position came to an end, I went to Chris, and State Parks was nice enough to actually create a position for me. So I have been here for almost 3 years now. September will be my 3rd year here. And prior to this position, I was working with finance as well as partially still under the OHV program. And I'm just happy to be here, and I'm excited for this new position. So if there's anything I can do to help you guys, please let me know.
Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome.
Great job, Rachel. Thank you. So in front of the board today, as presented, is the July 2020 quarterly physical incentive grants that's established part of the off-highway vehicle program that Director Rasmussen referred to in some of his comments. So what we're seeking approval. We received 7 applications. Before you today are 5 recommendations that have been vetted through the Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Council. And so some of those items associated that are in front of you are restroom facilities located in Box Elder County, specifically West Box Elder County. I'm not going to steal Kevin's thunder, but looks like St. Pete County has again submitted an application, which is wonderful. And then what I'd like to do is just highlight grant application number 4, which is the 360-degree OHV trail mapping. This is a submission by Paiute County. This is something in which the off-highway vehicle program has been already doing for approximately about the last 6-7 months. And now we're directing that towards counties individually to submit applications for grants to help fund those 360-degree mapping trail systems. And those trail systems are very similar like Google. So if you were to go to Google Street View, you'd be able to see very something similar, except it's on a motorized trail. And it's found on our website, which is ohv.utah.gov. It's located in 2 sites. My biggest fear is that Kevin will probably try to do the entire Airpine system on a binge over the weekend and not actually get out on the trail. So with that, I'll leave that. Any questions, I'll field those at this time.
Any questions from the board?
Just a comment. I think it's a great thing you're putting or helping to put up restrooms out at the Spiral Jetty, because I know it's a long ways from anywhere, and for someone of my age, it's always nice to know that you're going to be accommodated.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This is Kevin. So on that Trail 360, we have done over 200 miles of the Airpine Trail, and that should come online hopefully in the next couple weeks. So it's a good program for those that choose to do that. Since I have an application number 2, I will not vote on this one. I will recuse myself on this one, but I appreciate any support that I get.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. All right, any comments or questions about these grant recommendations? And if not, let's take a motion from a board member.
Mr. Chairman, this is Corey. I appreciate what's been presented here. It looks like a good use of funding and leveraging other funds and good on the ground work. I'd recommend that we approve the July 2020 fiscal incentive grant recommendations as has been presented by Chris here.
Okay, thank you, Corey. Do we have a second on this motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
All right, thank you, Claudia. And let's take a vote person by person, starting with you, Brent.
I vote yes to approve.
Okay, thank you, Claudia.
Yes.
And Corey?
I vote yes, thank you.
Doug?
I vote yes, except for number 2.
That's a good one.
I accept them all. Thank you.
Thank you for being a team player, Doug. And Leisha?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, the voting's been unanimous. Thank you, everyone. We'll move forward, I guess, with these grant recommendations. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
We're right on schedule, and so now would like to go to the next agenda item, the OHV or the LWCF grant recommendations for Hollywood Park. Tell us about Hollywood Park, Susan. Susan Zarinsky, Zarakarizzi, sorry, Lands Coordinator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to everyone. I'm coming to see if you guys want to approve a couple land and water grants today. Hollywood Park is in Grantsville. It's on the south end of Grantsville, up on the house, by the new houses, kind of up on the bench. And it's a cute little park, and they are slowly developing out a bunch of multi-purpose fields. They've got a playground, little pavilion, restroom, and they would like to add a splash pad, and there's plenty of houses around it, tons of parking. It will be a great amenity for the park. And the land and water program, the state side assistance portion of it, that's what it does. I mean, we go out and we build fun things in parks in both rural and urban settings. And it's on a 50-50 match. The state does take 10% for indirect. We're hoping that will go away, and the feds will give us some admin money, and then we can just pass everything through to the sponsors. But that's what it does. It's been around since the early 60s, and they would very much like to build a splash pad, and I hope that you will recommend it. Any questions?
Board members? Seeing no questions, we'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Hollywood Park Splash Pad LWCF grant proposal as submitted to the NPS for final approval.
Terrific. Thank you, Claudia, for that motion. Do we have a second?
This is Kevin. I'll second that.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, we'll go person by person, starting with you, Brent, on a vote.
I vote yes on that one.
Great, thank you, Brent. Claudia?
Yes.
Corey?
I vote yes.
Doug?
I will vote yes if you'll tell me why it's called Hollywood.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Jeff comes out that way. Let's ask Jeff.
Okay,
Kevin?
Yes.
Thank you. And Leisha, for your vote.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. The voting's been unanimous on Hollywood Park. So, Susan, you should be happy about that.
Yeah. Splash pads
Let's
are
go on
fun.
to let's go on to the next one. The Ward Farms parcels.
Now I have one more land and water approval for Orem City.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Yes,
all
Orem City first.
right. Okay, Orem
Getting
City.
ahead of myself.
Yeah, you want me to be the catch-up girl again, huh? Orem City has a 3-park proposal. All 3 parks, Geneva, Bonneville, and Sharon, all have had land and water grants in the past. And they're 30 to 40-year-old grants. And a lot of their facilities are dilapidated. It's time for them to be replaced. They've seen lots of use over the years. And so that's what they've come in asking for, some renovation money to come in, demolish some old restrooms, replace them with new restrooms, get them ADA compliant. And then they have an old multi-sport court that it's really old. It's pretty sad. It's asphalt with just some buckets on it. And they would like to replace that with a new multi-sport court that's with that great surface and pockets. So they have came to us and requested funding to go ahead and improve these parks. Any questions?
Board member, any questions? Geneva Park, Bonneville Park, Sharon Park. These will be nice improvements for Orem City. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, this is Corey. Susan, I appreciate all the good work. I would recommend that we approve the Land and Water Conservation Fund grants for Orem City Park renovations as been presented.
Terrific. Thank you, Corey, for that motion. Do we have a second?
This is
Leisha. I can second.
Okay, Leisha, thank you for that second. And Brent, let's start with you on a vote.
I vote yes.
Claudia?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Kevin Christensen?
Yes.
And Alicia Colthorpe for your vote.
Yes.
Terrific. Orem City will be happy. Thank you so much, Susan. Let's move on to the Ward Farms projects now, or parcels
Okay.
rather.
Paul, are you ready to fire up this presentation? All right, the Ward's Farm. So I'll start with some of the interesting things about land and water. And Paul's going to run this for us because I just didn't want any hiccups because this is kind of a long presentation. And I apologize. Like I said, I'm usually catch up, but not today. The Land and Water was created in the early 60s to protect public outdoor recreation. And it is an encumbrance that goes for on the land in perpetuity. So you got to kind of think of, well, they're kind of managing it. The National Park Service manages this projects through us, and they're managing it currently kind of like I would say a conservation easement that is geared toward public outdoor recreation. So if a sponsor wants to amend these old grants to change, either take property out or maybe do away with the park because it's in a part of town you don't really want, or people want some private use on there that is not, problematic, we have to go through what is known as a conversion process through the National Park Service. Because this is considered a conservation easement to them, any land that you want to remove has to be replaced with brand new recreation land. It has to be new recreation land, not land that has been dedicated, operated, or maintained as recreation by that sponsor. So we have had a couple of individuals come to us and request some conversions. And in the past, these are considered small conversions. There's two conversion processes. One that's really long and complicated. They're all really long, but complicated, requires environmental analysis, full NEPA, and a bunch of public presentations, things like that. And then there's something called a small conversion. And a small conversion is where you find it's less than 5 to 10%, they're kind of different on that, of the total surface area of the park. And it is kind of a minor impact. And when you get replacement land, that land is either adjacent to another park that you could encumber or directly adjacent to this park. And up at Wasatch, we were approached by two different entities requesting access onto park land. The first one is this Ward's conversion. And so go ahead and move to the next slide, Paul. Ward's property is down by Soldier Hollow Golf Course, down at the bottom of that map. And they own a bunch of fields in there that they would like to develop into a large subdivision. And so they requested access over to Cascade Spring Road, right there. And so that's where it is. Wasatch is about 22,000 acres in size. And this has been going on, I would say, 2 years from now when they first approached us. We tried to do an easement with them, but because the way subdivisions are, They need to bond against that entrance road, and it needs to be part of their subdivision. So we couldn't do that. We had to go through this small conversion process because it's transferring too much of the ownership of that land to a private party. So that's why this was not possible. And next slide, Paul. So this is a quick summary of this proposal. It's 0.2 acres for 0.3 acres. They're going to give us a little bit more land. Again, we're following this small conversion process. So this is less than 1/100 of a percent. It's actually like 1/10,000 or something like that of a percent of the land area. So it's way below the 5%, the 10% indicator. And it's in the past, we wouldn't even have had to bring this to you because it would have been more of an administrative correction or function. But they've recently changed their policies a little bit. So in the future, when we have these that involve state parks, you guys are going to have to look at them and determine if you're okay with them. So that's why you guys are seeing this. I don't think you've ever seen one in the past. I couldn't find any evidence of it. So this is kind of new for all of us. And so are there any questions so far up to this point about conversions? Okay, I will go on to the current conditions. Next slide, Paul. This is just a quick map of where this is located at. The red box is where they want access to that road. The long strip, which actually is along a fence line, and that's where the boundary is supposed to be. I mean, one of the good news of this conversion is we're going to get a survey of that boundary line so we can fix this boundary line in my GIS system. This boundary line in my GIS system is over 30 years old, and it's what everybody uses. So we have to be careful, including Wasatch County, when we change these because it upsets a lot of people. But we'll have a survey and we'll be able to fix that. But that shows you where that is. We talked about taking different parcels, like a parcel in the middle of the subdivision or a parcel along the back. And we like the parcel along the back because trying to manage something in the middle of a subdivision is a bad idea. So they're going to move the fence. We're going to get this land. It gives us a further buffer on there and just improves things for us because we actually have a trail that runs parallel to that fence line that our current concessionaire uses as an OHV ATV access up onto Wasatch. So that will buffer that trail from the houses. We are reserving a right-of-way along there for that trail. So they know there's going to be people on ATVs crossing their road right there. So, and that's pretty much the current conditions. There aren't any endangered species. The archaeologists looked at it. The only thing there is the west bench, but it had already been, its historical integrity had been destroyed because they buried it in that area. It's been contained in a pipe. So there's nothing, environmentally wrong up here to hold us up with this conversion. Any questions?
Susan, I have one. How much public comment is required for this? Because their intent is to create a subdivision.
Yeah.
And so, just reading in the news about Tooele County and the temple is supposed to be out there and people are in upper because of the density issue and increased population, traffic, those kind of things. Is that taken into consideration at all what the proposed use of the conversion is for? And does the public have any input into that?
There will be a 30-day public comment period with this. It's on our website where people can comment on it. We don't tell counties and cities what to do with their property, and we don't tell private landowners what to do with their property. We just analyze the recreation loss on that parcel versus the recreation gain on that parcel. And if it's not negative, then we move forward with the conversion process. Some other states get into all the other thing that you're talking about, but our governor was very clear to us on another conversion that we had up in Box Elder County that you don't tell people at state parks what they can do on their property or in their zoning. Does that make sense?
So if there's negative public comment regarding the proposed use of this, does that negate the conversion, or do we just go ahead and the property owner determines what they do with what they now have as property that they can't use? Is that kind of the philosophy then?
If the negative comment is considered substantive, meaning that it impacts the proposal as is, then yeah, it can put it on hold. The National Park Service, if they're concerned, they can make these people go through a full environmental analysis in order to get that little piece. And they would have to hire somebody, and that would probably kill this right away, because that would probably be in this area looking at what they'd have to do, $30,000-$40,000 minimum pay for that.
So in a nutshell, Susan, and just for clarity's sake, can you give us how is this benefiting state parks, and how is this benefiting the farms?
It benefits the farms because they finally have access so they can develop their property. It benefits state parks because we get more people that can come in here and access. They're supposedly going to build a trail that will come out here and join onto this area too. So and originally they were going to deed this road to the county, and if that had been so, this wouldn't even been before you, because it would have been still in a public entity's ownership. But the county changed their mind and decided they wouldn't take the road. They were going to make the HOA manage it. So, but they're still going to allow public through there. It's not going to be a gated community. So there will be better access up into the park area.
So this is a win-win for everyone.
Yeah.
And you did look at several other parcels, and this just made sense.
Yeah, they needed to be adjacent to the park in order to conform to the small conversion. And so that's the challenge. They did offer a bunch of land that's really high and super steep. We couldn't do anything with it. So yeah, it's view shed, but it has no recreational utility. This has recreational utility in that it's down low, and that, we could actually move the trail a little bit if we had to, or make a pull out in there, things like that.
I just have one more question, Susan. So can you add restriction or can you add requirements relative to this conversion, like the open access to the road, that it cannot ever be closed off?
No. So the best I can do is reserve that easement. So once this comes out of public ownership, it's now private. And so there's a limit to what we can do, because it has to be the full value of the land. If I start reserving stuff like that, they're not getting the whole value of the land. They're getting 50% of the value. And there's not really anything that we could do with that. We don't really have a way of doing that at this point. I'm not even sure if other states do that. But the whole point of the conversion is it comes out of public ownership and becomes private.
Well, my concern would be that they can close off that access, which is one of the things you're gaining, is access through the subdivision. So
if they closed it off, they'd have to do it on their property, and they are fully within their rights to do that.
Any other comments or questions? I'm looking at the very last slide, Susan, of this presentation, the recommendation itself.
Okay, so you want me to switch down to there?
Are you ready to go there?
Paul, can you go to the last slide?
Or was there anything else that you needed to explain, Susan? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
I think I did. The preferred replacement is what we were asking. It has to have recreational development, and it needs to be adjacent to Wasatch, which is pretty much what our goals with that.
Okay.
And then we're going to retain the OHV right away.
Okay. So there's a recommendation on the very last page that the Division of Parks and Recreation recommends the board approve the submission of the conversion proposal with Ward Farm to the National Park Service for their review. So once there's board approval, then it goes to the NPS for their review and final approval. Is that correct?
Yeah, and they may choose not to approve. They just won't even look at it till I submit the entire proposal to them. So we're not quite sure how they feel about it till we submit it.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move, this is Doug, I move that the board approve the submission of the conversion proposal with Ward Farm to the National Park Service for their review.
Thank you, Doug. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, this is Corey. I'll second the motion.
All right, Corey, thank you so much. All right, let's vote person by person, starting with you, Brent, if we can.
I vote yes. Yep, yes.
Okay, Claudia.
Okay, yes.
Corey.
Yes.
And Doug.
Yes, thank you.
Kevin Christensen.
Yes.
And Alicia Colthorpe.
Yes.
Okay, the motion's unanimous, so you're able to move forward, Susan, to with your proposal to the NPS. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next
And if-
agenda item is, oh, I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, if we get a bunch of negative comments in, I will definitely let the board know through email and get with Jeff and decide what we want to do.
Terrific, thank you. The next agenda item is the Xtel parcels. Tell us about that, Susan.
This is another conversion at Wasatch Mountain, and let's just go ahead and switch down to the one with the map on it where it's Wasatch Mountain State Park. Again, 22,000 acres, but on this map, you can see where this conversion is. And this is going to be, I'm going to do this presentation with Brooke Huntz, who is with Xtel Development Utah, right, Brooke? And she's going to speak to why they wanted this property and what the big proposal is up here at Wasatch. This one's a little bit more complicated. It's still going in as the small conversion, but this map, it shows you where the two parcels for conversion are. They're on the northeast side of the park. They're very high. They're very high elevation. And then you can see where the replacement parcels are. And with respect to the Wasatch Mountain State Park. So, and this
Brooke,
again is a small conversion. I think I already said that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Brooke, for being with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Go ahead and explain the Xtel conversion.
Okay, so next slide, Paul. Okay, so I'm going to turn, let me introduce Brooke Hoots, and she is with Xtel, and I will let her speak to this project.
Thank you, Susan. Thanks everyone for having us. I also have Kurt Krieg. He's listed on, if you're looking at the people in the meeting details, he's our Senior Vice President with EX Utah Development LLC. It has been such a pleasure to work with the Utah State Parks and all of the team members, including Susan and Lori and Dave and Tracy. It's actually been quite a long road, and you're going to see a few slides based on how the meeting's gone thus far, and I've been able to listen to the entire presentations. I will try to summarize my comments. In a few slides, you're going to see, but you don't need to go yet, the actual location of where the resort development that Xtel or EX Utah development is working on. It's adjacent to the Jordanelle State Park at Exit 8. And so that's where the intensity and the density will go. Well, you'll have support commercial and structures and trailheads, hotels and residences. And so across from the state park on the private land, that's where the focus of the development that we're looking at is going to be located. That approval originally took place in the late 1970s and 1980s. So if you're familiar with this particular region, Deer Valley, which actually opened in 1982, was starting their master planning at the same time. And this portion of the project that we own now was slated to begin at the same time. When Xtel came onto the scene, and started processing what had already been approved in the 1980s, but then was updated through Wasatch County and our government authority, which is now MIDA, the Military Installation Development Authority. We have had numerous public meetings in order to update those master plans that included a significant recreation component. And the recreation component gets, as you move outside of the village area adjacent to the highway, more and more backcountry-like until you are in a completely backcountry experience. Again, in a couple slides, you'll be able to see that pretty well. And in looking at that, our land, X-Tiles, was interspersed with state land in various locations that made it really obvious for really good trail connections, pedestrian, so hiking, biking, ski trail connections. In order for those to work the best, we would need to either do an easement or some sort of relationship with the state parks. So that's where we didn't even know if that was feasible. And so we sat down with the state parks team. It's got to be almost 2 years ago, perhaps longer, to have this first conversation and see where the interests could intersect and what the state parks priorities were. And so in understanding, and I believe throughout the presentations today, and in Susan's earlier presentation, the goals of the state parks in terms of not just the simple things like adjacency, that actually, if you want to go to the next slide, that would be really helpful. Thank you. Not just the adjacency element, but the trailhead locations and being able to get people into onto trails at lower elevations and not just up high in the mountains where the existing state parks parcels were reviewed, and we were able to understand that. So we then started the process of analyzing what land could potentially be available. I'm going to come back to this slide potentially in a second that you're looking at right now, but this is helpful in understanding where there's a little castle symbol. It says Mayflower Mine Future Resort Development Village on the kind of upper right-hand corner. That's labels right, thank you, right on top of the where the actual resort center will be, and the sunshine as well. And then you can see the clouded areas, which are mostly X-Tel land, and then the state parks areas to the south and to the west. Then you can also see the intense amount of recreation that exists on the Park City side related to year-round trails. There's a lot of biking, hiking, and obviously the ski trails, which you can see very easily there. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So this is an image, a rendering, artist rendering of where the density intensity would occur. So this is where there's actually the parking lot shown in the lower left-hand corner, where I think our main trailhead will be located, and a lot of the capturing of folks in their vehicles will occur, and then we'll hope to disperse them not only through our village, but into, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, some of the future trail lands. This is actually to demonstrate how long this has actually been in the works in terms of people dreaming of having an extensive trail network in this Wasatch County area. This is from the approved Wasatch County Master Plan. It looks ugly because it's from 1982 and it's probably hand-drawn. And you can see that back then when the county first approved this development, there was no highway, there was no Jordanelle, but they did intend to have a ski resort and trails located right off of where proposed US 40 was drawn on the map. And Heber is located, as you can see, to the south. Next slide, please. And so I'm going to turn back to Susan because she's going to get into the details of the actual parcels, but in a little bit, I'll come back and describe what it took in order to get to even having a substantive conversation with the state about the exchange.
Anyone have any questions for Brooke? Okay, the reason why this one was proposed as a conversion, and I actually did have a conversation with the National Park Service about this proposal. We were hoping originally we could do like a long-term lease of portions of it, like where they were going to put down a ski lift or where they wanted to do some yurts and some trails. And again, as a private entity, they really need more control over the land than Land and Water would afford them. And after talking to the National Park Service, they were concerned that that would violate Land and Water. So after hearing that, we decided, we talked with Brooke and our, at that time, director of DNR, Mike Styler. And at that time, I think Fred was still in charge. And we determined that a conversion was probably the best way to move forward with this. We were all very excited to have a partnership that would develop so many outdoor recreational facilities just to the north of our park and give people from Midway access from Midway up to ski resort area and things like that. It just was a great benefit. We could all see the benefits of it. So with that direction, we moved on to a conversion. We chose a small conversion because that's the best for Wasatch. Small conversion would keep that property at Wasatch. So we propose on this one exchanging 564 acres of parkland for 370.27 acres of Exdell owned parcels. As you can see, the parkland is very high, and most of the Exdell land is lower where we can get access up onto the park. It's 2.6% of the total land area, so it meets the 5%. And we did go through the NEPA requirements from the feds. Go ahead and go next slide. So we'll start with this eastern parcel. It's about 222 acres in size. It's very high. It's 6,000 feet to 7,000 feet. It's a canyon. It's a narrow canyon. It's got extreme slope. It's covered with aspen and oak brush. There's a trail that goes through the corners. It's not really a trail. It's kind of a game trail. It might have been a trail at one time, but right now it's pretty much a game trail. The only thing you can really do on that land is hiking and hunting. It is everything to the east is, from what we understand, CUP, the Central Utah Project Mitigation Commission. And they have for years controlled the access so it can only be non-motorized. Originally, they said you had to have a fishing pole in hand before you cross their bridge, but now they've kept it non-motorized, which has really limited access to this parcel. And I think, and Brooke can address this later, I do think Brooke has an option to buy the land now that is to the east and north of this. So it will go out of their ownership into Exdel's ownership, if I understand correctly. There were no federal listed species, and there were 2 mine adits on this, which were historic, but they weren't considered eligible for listing to the National Registry for Historic Places because they're just minor. And that's that parcel. And Brooke, do you want to add anything?
No, and you are correct, Susan. The parcel that makes up the remainder of that section has a few steps to achieve, but it is essentially under option because it will become a SITLA property eventually. So we have that. We're working through that with them and have it under option right now.
Just a quick question. So this is what we're giving up or what we're gaining?
Giving up.
Giving up. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next slide. This is the other parcel that we'll be giving up. It's 342 acres. It is very high, 7,600 feet to 9,600 feet. It is, again, oak brush, quakees, and then on the north slope, there's some coniferous stands. Very high. Again, this whole area is supposed to be non-motorized. There are some trails in the area. Some of them are user-created trails. They're not actual state park trails. And that is, so pretty much the recreation on this parcel is hiking, biking, and hunting. And it again is limited. There's only like one small access from the south. And it's just really limited. And then everything from the north is actually accessed from Extel's property. So all those trails are coming off Extel's property, and most of the users are from the adjacent Brighton Estates subdivisions that are up there. And that's where they're coming on this parcel. There are no federally listed species in the area, and this one did not have any historical or cultural sites. Do you have anything to add, Brooke?
You're going to see in a few minutes how the access and recreation is improved if this project were to go forward by the trade. So that's important to understand. It's oftentimes really hard to tell from these flat images, which I think Susan's doing a really nice job, but the ability to be able to get to this land and the other slide is quite challenging right now, unless you're coming across Extel property, as Susan mentioned. So it's actually quite steep and quite high.
I have a quick question. On the map, it looks like the Wasatch Mountain Park boundary on the west is not part of that whole conversion that isn't our property. Is that correct? That dotted black line? I can see
the boundary is wrong. That boundary is wrong.
Oh, the boundary's wrong.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's one of the, like I said, this is a very old boundary. And so I use it because, like I said, I've got to be careful when I mess with boundaries in Wasatch County, but we do own that whole side there. We have the deed for it. I guess we could go to court and argue with who was first. These are all mining claims, by the way. A bunch of these are mining claims. Some of them are straight up parcel deeds, but some of these are mining claims. And mining claims get super complicated on who owns what and who owned it first. So, but we do have the deeds, and our deeds do show that as our ownership. Confusing, I know. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is the first parcel that we're going to get as replacement. So conversion land means you can convert it out of land and water, and this is what we're going to replace it with. And this is the first one. And this is a 1 acre parcel just south of the park boundary there, and it is located in Dutch Canyon area. And it is just south of a major trailhead. It does have a cabin on it. It has a beautiful 1 acre lot behind that you could do group camping, and you could maybe rent the cabin. That's a conversation for later with the FCM, but it is there. There aren't any federally listed species, and it doesn't contain any cultural sites. It does come with its own water right and its own well, so it does have water, and it's just a beautiful place. It will be great amenity to add to the park so that individuals can get up and go play on Dutch Hollow, or Dutch Canyon, sorry. Anything else, Brooke, you want to add? Okay, any questions? You can see the trail system up there. It's an extensive mountain bike, not motorized, equestrian too. I didn't forget Lori Backus. You can also take your horse up there, and it is heavily used, heavily used.
So this is another boundary issue where it looks like it's already in our property, but it is not. So the boundary line showing there is incorrect.
No, it's the boundary line is actually on the north and the east of it. It abuts directly against our boundary.
Oh, I see. Okay. Got it.
Anything you want to add, Brooke? Nope. Okay. Any questions from the board? All right. We'll move on to the next one. This is 2 parcels. This one's hard to see. You can see the messed up boundary, and I'm really grateful for this one because as this proceeds through, again, when we get this, Brooke's got surveyors, and they will help us know where this boundary line is because it is just a mess. These are all mining claims, and the mining claims, you think you should be able to hire somebody to come in and use a legal description and get to what they are. But the section corners that were used to originally establish mining claims aren't the real section corners. So the surveyors actually have to come in and find the corners of the mining claims in order to map these out. It's pretty challenging. Red Honey is the big block, which is 309.67 acres. State Parks owns 50% of that, and Xtel owns almost 50%. And we have been trying to get this land for over 20 years. We have went through so many appraisals and stuff and talked about doing land swaps to try to get this in holding. And I am really excited that we may finally be able to do that. It also is very high, 8,600 feet to 9,300 feet, but it has a beautiful meadow in it, and people love to hunt in this area on this. Oak brush, quaking aspen, it's just a great place, hiking, biking, hunting. And there is a road that kind of cuts through there that people use to hunt. And then the Black Rock is 6.3 acres, and that's the one that's up at the top. And it's on the very northern, and it's a little sort of comes down at an angle. And that is a remainder in holding that is directly adjacent to our boundary that abuts that road. So when we get this, we will own almost everything, at least in this portion, to the west of that road and south. And so we're pretty excited. The little cut in that you see there is actually BLM land. So that's our partners with the Bureau of Land Management. Black Rock is predominantly flat, quaking aspen, oak brush, and I'm pretty excited to see this one because I'm hoping that we will be able to develop an access road that doesn't take us through the Brighton Estates subdivision. Right now, to get back in there, you kind of have to go through the subdivision, and they will try to lock it out constantly. And this, we're hoping, will get us another way to get in there without having to go through the subdivision. So that's pretty exciting for that one. Again, no endangered species, and there were a couple of historic sites. They're mostly markings on trees and some lines, but they are not eligible. Any questions? Anything, Brooke? Okay, next slide. This is the Lime Canyon parcel. This is on the far western corner. This was actually suggested by our park manager. The whole reason is this is all subdivision to the east, and these parcels have a road that cuts through the middle of it that on that road is reserved in the deed for access. So getting this gives the state parks reserved access rights up there. We've had the subdivisions start fighting access up that road, trying to stop people from being able to recreate up there. So we're hoping this will answer that question and allow us to finally develop a trailhead up there for people to go play. It's high again. It's 53.17 acres. It's made up of a bunch of individual lots, very steep slopes, but that access road is amazing. It's hiking, biking, and hunting. We are hoping to allow motorized access in this area. That's what we'd like to see for a future goal, but we'll have to work with the county on that. And that's all. You have anything to say on that one, Brooke? Any questions? Okay, next slide. So when Xtel approached us and said, well, what do you want? Basically in exchange, we really want parcels that get us access. Wasatch, and especially in the Midway area, is becoming highly developed. And the more subdivisions that develop up to the park boundary, the more access roads start to go away. It's just life everywhere, I think. We just really wanted to secure access. And so we asked Xtel to look at land that is on the bottom or land that could give us access to our property and help, keep everybody able to go recreate on Wasatch Mountain State Park. It has to be, of course, equal value, value for value, dollar for dollar is what that means. Clean title, recreational development potential, and then of course it has to be approved by the National Park Service. And those were the requests that we. Sorry, next slide, please. So I'll turn this over to Brooke because that seems like a small ask, but it was actually very difficult, and I'll let her explain what Xtel had to endure to get us to this point. Go for it, Brooke.
Thank you, Susan. So although the Wasatch Mountain State Park is 22,000 acres, and so you would think the adjacency for prime property that met the state goals would be relatively easy to find. Finding it wasn't hard. It was then approaching the landowners, and there really weren't that many pieces that met the standard that we thought, as Extel and the state parks thought, were really valuable and met what they were looking for. And so of those, it was a relatively wide net, but then we were literally knocking on doors and making cold calls to folks to see if they would be interested in selling. And none of the properties that we acquired were for sale. And so it was all based on us going out and asking, please, will you sell? Except for fortunately, Tracy C. at Wasatch Mountain did get a tip from someone that they may be interested. And so that was very, very helpful to finish this off. But some of the properties that we did approach and ended up not acquiring were 10 times what they would have been appraised at or more. So people had high hopes once we came knocking, and others just after doing the due diligence actually had some sort of issue with them that didn't make sense to try to transact on those. And so it was extensive and I think well worth it, because in working with the state parks to further define, we were able to stay focused and continue to refine that list until we got the properties. And if you want to go to the next slide, I think this helps to show then the benefit. It may be challenging to see on your screen, but all of those little red lines are proposed future trails. And this is if we could have everything we ever wanted in a trail system map. And it shows you the connectivity not only to the more intensely recreated areas, which are shown in kind of that beige color, and the red dot being the main trailhead down by our village, but you can also see the extensive network of connectivity through to the community in Midway, the upper mountain, potentially over into Summit County and Park City, and then again back down towards Jordanelle State Park, that this transaction would allow to occur. And so this is the slide we showed earlier with the bubbles of the area, which is essentially shown there right now with no recreation. You're creating this entirely new zone of non-motorized recreation is what we're looking to do here. And so if we go to the next slide, here is specifically how the parcels that the state parks would be essentially trading away would be utilized. And so you can see how the trails align on those particular parcels. The blue are hike, bikes, potentially snowshoe. Maybe we even have some Nordic in this area. I think it'll probably be further to the west, but that's the intention for those. And then the red lines are proposed future ski lifts that would then have a network of trails related to those. And so on the right-hand side in section 1, you can see north-south running Highway 40. And you can see how this really is bringing a lot of recreation activity in this area that is very remote and currently doesn't experience any recreation whatsoever, except for mostly trespass. So I think, let's see, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, I think I hand it back to Susan.
Do you guys have any questions for Brooke? Okay, now I'll quickly go through the recreational benefits. I kind of did as we were talking about it. Again, McIsaac is the house down there by Dutch Canyon, and that gives us access to the trail system, gives us a great facility that we can rent out as a group campsite to people and get them up and onto the park. Black Rock was the small parcel over adjacent to the road that hopefully will give us another access into our property that doesn't currently go through a subdivision. That would be awesome. Next slide. Red Honey consolidates the majority of ownership of this block with the state. And I think it's important to note that Extel is continuing to work on the 2/18 ownership. Finding those owners has been difficult. It's been no fun. Many of them are dead, so they've been dead quite a while. So Brooks had quite a challenge with that. And again, this has been in the works for 20 years. And it provides important access to Bonanza Flat, and it gives us more control over the area, so we can go in there and develop trails of our own and continue to improve recreational use on the park. And then Lime Canyon secures access to park lands and then allows for the future development of a motorized trailhead. And again, it might give an area that would be great for primitive yurts too, because it is really beautiful in there. There's some beautiful conifers, and it would be a great area to tuck some yurts in there, some very primitive stay areas. You guys have any questions about the recreational benefits for me or Brooke?
So Susan, sorry, go ahead.
Well, the only question that I have is, it's clear to me that that this is complicated and that you've been through a lot of challenges in pulling this together. I guess my question is, what's the next hurdle? Are there hurdles still that need to be resolved before this conversion can actually take place?
Yeah, when we get this ready to submit to the National Park Service, we have to finish the 30-day comment period. If there are any comments, we have to address them. If they're substantive, we have to mitigate them. It has to be presented to the National Park Service and see if they will accept it. They may decide that they don't think it's a good enough proposal, and they may send us back and make us do more research, which they can do. If the National Park Service signs off, again, we would have to go through the state process of it, where we go before the county, do a presentation to the county to get permission to trade the lands. And then we would have to put that through our governor's office to get permission as well. We just didn't want to do that up front because we don't even know if the National Park Service is going to agree to it. We don't want a chicken and egg thing where we just can't win, which is first, we don't know. So we went this way so that we could at least say, hey, the National Park Service approved. If you approve, we can actually move forward with it. So, I mean, you may see this again, I can't promise, and there will definitely be a lot more public comment, even if the National Park Service comes back and says, okay.
So I'm wondering, I know Kate posted this for public comment. I'm wondering, Kate, did you receive any public comment on this proposal?
No, I did not.
Claudia, you had a question.
Well, I was wondering about the red honey piece. So you don't have all of the pieces yet to complete that parcel exchange. Is that what I understood? And so is this ready to present to National Park Service? And what's their deadlines? Do they have certain timelines or deadlines that you have to submit in order to be considered?
They don't require us to own 100%. The state assumes the risk for the 2/18 at this point. And we have a year after the National Park Service approved to get this done. And you only get a year, that's it. So 365 days hits the minute you get the approval letter from the National Park Service. So that's kind of where it is. This mining claims are very difficult to acquire. I mean, it's been a challenge all our life, and this is as close as we've ever got to finally getting that block. I don't think the National Park Service will have too much heartburn with it. We just will have to wait and see. And Brooke, if you want to talk about the 2/18s, feel free.
Thank you, Susan. It has been a challenge, as she mentioned. In fact, I've never had to hire a private investigator before. I didn't know that how they would be useful, but it took that for the 2/18s are not owned by the same entities. And in both cases, the people are no longer alive. And there was no will, and there's no, anyway, the details are massive. It's a long list, but so we are trying to transact on both of those, and we have made significant progress, and both are active in terms of moving the process forward. Both of them require either state or court participation because of the way that the land was left without heirs and so forth. And so that is all going forward. It's time consuming, and we feel very confident at this point that we will be able to get those remaining 2/18. I don't want to jinx us basically by saying that, but it's been a challenge, and we feel like it's moving in the right direction.
This is Corey. I've got a question regarding the properties. In your slide that you had on the land search challenges, you noted value. And I'm looking at, there's kind of some acreages with the exchange as what is being proposed here. Is there a requirement or an expectation that appraisals are to be conducted on the properties? Is that part of our assessment?
Go for it, Brooke.
Appraisals have been prepared. It was required. I'm not sure, Susan, if it was both by national parks and the state, but either way, they have been prepared for each of the parcels. The valuation far exceeds for the state, the land you're getting, than the land you would be trading. And I should have that number, because it would probably make you all very happy to hear how much more in value the land you'd be getting. But that was important to us as well, is that we got to land, whether acreage or not, that the value obviously was at least the same level. But of course, we were hoping to have some buffer there and to have it on the positive side for the state parks.
Tell me about these are mining claims. What about mine hazards? Are there things out there that are dangerous? Do we have hazards on site? There a liability that we're taking on? Any issues with things like that?
No, there aren't any real mining hazards in this area. It's really outside the ore bodies that were mined in Park City. There are a couple guys that have tried to mine up there. I think one of the biggest one is called the Green Monster Mine. Up there is one of the biggest mines, and that's not anywhere near. But there are a couple little test pits that they've done in areas. There's just not really anything here. It's really more over on the Park City side. And then Mayflower had a pretty good mine on their property, which Brooke spent millions and millions of dollars cleaning up. But that's not really on us either.
And then back to what Claudia had mentioned with this percent ownership, with the division having 9/10 and Xtel owning 9/18 versus Xtel would be providing 7/18. I would assume that was part of the appraisal process, is looking at those percent ownerships or fractions.
Correct.
And also the outstanding fractions and what was left there.
Correct. Actually the appraisal was run at 7/18, not at 9/18. So it assumed that we did not own, and for the sake of valuation. And so I didn't run what the extra 2/18 would mean to the valuation, but it would just be that much more. So the valuation as it stands and it would be submitted is off of the 7.
And so, Susan, you mentioned that there's like a 1-year period for this process to be completed. And was there a suggestion that Xtel would be responsible for securing that other 2/18 in that 1-year period? I didn't understand that completely, or there was no expectation, or what was this?
No, they're going to continue to work for it. We're going to submit. We've done so much work. We're going to submit as it is to the National Park Service, and then Xtel is going to continue to try to get that done in the next year. But because it does involve court, it's going to be difficult. When we actually draw out contracts for transfer of the property, we'll be putting stuff like that in that will continue to help us with that, to get that other 2/18, so we can guarantee we have at least fee in the surface in that area. But if we waited for that, we'd be here a long time. And they've spent a lot of money. I mean, they've already bought all this property. So we just felt, rather than it's time to put it to the National Park Service, so that we can, at least for this portion, stop the bleeding of funds until the National Park Service tells us whether or not they agree with what we're doing.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board members? Susan and Brooke, thank you so much for a very detailed presentation that helped us really understand this complicated conversion. It's exciting. So if no more questions, I'll take a motion.
This is Doug. I move that the board approve the submission of the conversion proposal with ex-Utah Development LLC, Extel, to the National Park Service for its review.
Okay, we have a motion from Doug. Do we have a second?
This is Kevin. I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Kevin. And we'll go person to person voting, starting with you, Brent.
I vote yes.
Claudia,
Yes.
Corey,
I vote yes as well.
Doug,
Yes, thank you.
Kevin,
Yes.
and Leisha Colthorpe.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for your votes. It's unanimous that that this conversion proposal be submitted to the NPS for review. So thank you. Thank you, Susan and Brooke.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Susan, thanks for all your work. We appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
The next item is other business. I really don't have any other business for the board or for this meeting. I think we did set a time for our next meeting, did we not, Kate? Or do we need to do that now?
I believe we have set the next meeting for November 19th. Does that sound right to other folks?
That sounds right.
It would be helpful. I know that this is a long way off, but it would be, Paul Gedge is telling me that it's helpful if we can determine the meeting time, especially if it's going to be a virtual meeting, because that allows us to secure this YouTube streaming slot. So if we want, do we want to go ahead and set that meeting for the 19th at the same time?
It would be my recommend.
Or
Yes.
Bob, it's
Yes.
Leisha.
Hi, Leisha.
That is the week of the UAC conference in St. George. So there are some, Natalie and I for sure will be out on that day.
Okay.
And sometimes Scott or Jeff will come to UAC. So I just want to throw that out there. If we do it virtually, there's a I don't know that Natalie and I could get out of our meetings that day.
Can we back it up a week and go to the 12th of November? We certainly don't want to push it forward because you're right on Thanksgiving.
Moving it back would actually be better for me as well.
Can we look at the 12th, everyone? Let's look at that as a possibility. And I would recommend that we go 9 o'clock just like this and plan for a virtual meeting. I don't think anything's going to change between now and November significantly that we shouldn't just go ahead and plan for a virtual meeting like this. And I'd like to just thank the technology team for putting this together. This is a lot of work. And so whoever you are out there, thank you for putting this together for us. I feel like this was a very informative, a very productive and efficient meeting. And I appreciate everyone's involvement and help today. Kate, especially your help too in getting all the documentation and things put together. I know you've been wearing two hats for a long time, and it's wonderful to have you, Amber, with us and taking over some of those responsibilities. So I don't know, any comments about the 12th? How do you feel about that, folks?
Sounds good.
Okay, let's just plan on that. I will take a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Chairman, I'd like to make one comment.
Yes.
And I want to thank staff for all the excellent photos in this presentation, in the whole packet. It for those of us who don't read real well, it made it a lot more interesting. I appreciate it. I know that makes it a little harder to do, but I'm grateful. Thank you.
Pictures are key.
Thank you.
And a final thank you to Kate. I guess she won't be with us any longer, so she's been amazing, and I really appreciated the good work she's done for the board. She will be so good in planning, so looking for good things from you there, Kate. Thank you.
It's been such a pleasure to do this with you guys, and I am looking forward to all of the new and exciting things that we get to do together.
Thank you, Kate. You are awesome, and we have really appreciated all of your support. You've been amazing. Thank you. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn this meeting, folks.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a second.
Yes, second, Kevin.
All right, Kevin. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great next 3 months, and we'll see you in November on the 12th.
Thanks,
Take
Bob.
care, everyone. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Bye. Good to see everyone.
Bye-bye.